Oh. All right, Joy, just tell me about that property. What was discussed this week?
Well, so what happened last Tuesday was that the board finally gave staff some direction on how we are moving forward with the property. Basically, it's a Hall of Fame building. And, within that building, we have also a IMAX theater. It is really large property and also the ground underneath the building. That is really the only property of subject of discussion for Tuesday. And the board really, I'm very proud of them. They took time, they discussed the pros and cons of different options. Jesse Dunn, my deputy county administrator, presented essentially three options. You can keep it, you can use it for public use or some partnered use with other entities, or you can just outright sell it, or you can do a P3 process, which essentially you are looking for a partner to work with you to either purchase it and provide public benefit or some other ways of using the property to equally provide public benefit. Because essentially, um, public-private partnership is defined by state statutes, and essentially you have to provide public benefit. A independent analysis usually is required to qualify that.
And I got voted as the P3 officially
Yes,
this week. And
yes,
we'll get
unanimously.
into
Yeah, that was great.
we'll get into the public benefit, but can you kind of give me a little bit of the backdrop? And it's only the IMAX that you were saying that they're discussing right now, that portion.
Yes.
Okay. Can you give me the backstory on that?
Well, I think this predates all of us. In 90s, the whole concept of Wolgolf Village was conceived by, at the time, the developer, and they worked with PGA and later PGA Foundation was formed. They worked with the state to essentially conceive this concept of a Hall of Fame with this amazing golf course, with some hospitality around it, with a production building to provide entertainment content. The county got involved because the bond program that went through this economic development process required public ownership of the grounds. So the county became the owner of the grounds because of that reason to support this partnership between PGA Foundation and the state. So that was the idea at the time, and of course, decades passed by. It seemed like it didn't work. PGA Foundation announced their relocation plan to move the Hall of Fame, and subsequently, we entered into a series of discussions and negotiations, and really tried to figure out what would be the best use for what's still remaining on the formerly known Wolgolf Village, or formerly known as Hall of Fame. The board conducted a series of public engagement. They did surveys, they did town hall meetings. Staff was, very participatory, of course, in all of that process. We, as a result, obtained a good report. It essentially outlined what the community really wants, how they're prioritizing their visions for this village. And we enter into sort of negotiation with the PGA Foundation with the intent to acquire the PGA production building, aka the PGA building. We were very close. We had a purchase sales agreement. It's since then it has expired because we went through a extensive due diligence period and discovered there is pretty strict use restriction on not only the PGA production building, but also on Hall of Fame building and among others. It is a covenant restriction that was agreed upon by multiple parties. So that became a problem for us to acquire the production building. So we backed out of that deal, and then we got to Tuesday. Essentially, we needed to decide. There is a cost associated with sort of just sitting on that property without knowing what we're going to do with it. So the board made a decision to move forward with a P3 process, and really it opens for really a wide range of options for what may happen with that building.
It's the cost that would be associated with just sitting on it and doing nothing.
Well, your maintenance cost, there is also common area maintenance cost, in just for the air conditioning, just for the insurance, and it's over hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if you're counting in the common area maintenance, and that includes landscaping, road, pavement, and all these things, and it very easily can get into million.
So we're again specifically talking about just that IMAX portion. Is that the PGA production? Is that what we're calling that?
No, so the PJ production building is the office space that actually adjacent to the Hall of Fame building. The Hall of Fame building itself, it was just a museum itself, and then with a component of a theater.
It's sitting there, and that's what we voted. Basically, the county voted on. What do we do with this building, the PGA building, and what do we do with this IMAX?
So the Hall of Fame building, the PGA building, still the ownership is still remained with foundation. My understanding is that they're probably going to pursue um, putting that on the market and see if they'll get a buyer. Certainly, the Hall of Fame has relocated, so there is no reason. And then of course, PGA now has a new home for their production function in Ponte Vedra, so there is no reason for them to keep that building. But as far as the county is concerned, we own the Hall of Fame. It was a provision that was provided in their original agreement that if the Hall of Fame ceased to operate as a museum, it reverts back to the ownership of St. Johns County, including the grounds underneath it. So we sort of became the default owner of the building. So what's happened in the next couple of months, what we're going to do is to develop a RFP scoping, and basically invite anybody who may have interest in either acquire or entering into some sort of partnership agreement with St. Johns County to operate something that will meet the definition of public benefit.
I mean, what does the future of that look like to you? I mean, do you envision like another theater concept of entertainment, or could that be repurposed in some way?
Um, that was a concept that really was contemplated for a while. The theater, the short answer is yes. Anything could potentially happen, because we don't really have any confined scope of what we're looking for. Um, Theater certainly was very high on the priority list for the community to want to keep. And so that was why we explored many different ways to bring back the theater. Theater was operated by the foundation, so that stopped when they moved. IMAX franchise also comes with a cost. There is upgrade cost in the capital. The theater equipment is due for some sort of upgrade, and it's either the screen or the audio system. And there is also franchise fee associated with the franchise with the IMAX. So there is a lot of considerations on what type of theater that we should bring back. In fact, our private-public partnership agency, St. John's Cultural Event Inc., which is SJCCE, made a proposal to the Board of County Commissioners to bring a concept called Exit 323 Theater, which essentially is a non-IMAX franchise theater that'll bring sort of a concept of a community theater. But because of the capital cost that's associated with running that theater, you have chiller replacement that need to happen. You have all these air condition fix. You also have, and it just in general, the building needs a fresh up, and that's very costly. And so that was a concept the board contemplated, and I'm not saying that is no longer a option, but now we have basically open it up for everyone to come with their ideas. And we have gotten so many unsolicited sort of ideas of what each entities may want to bring. Either it's a swimming school, a indoor sports complex, a theater, or a co-work space, a lecture hall, you name it, school, vocation school. We have all kinds of interest to have been kind of given to us. So now we can truly entertain those ideas and analyzing them. And the board essentially will make a decision what may be the best option for the village. So it is to me, I think the options is really wide at this point.
Somewhat new to Florida. Like I said, I got here in June, but when I think in my little time here, I've grown to know that the World Golf Village is a really opportune area. So it seems like what you want in there, like would want to complement a good opportunity.
I would agree with you. The location is really the arguably dead center of St. Johns County. It's right off of 95. And it's a growing area with a lot of rooftops. It certainly has a potential to bring amazing economic or tourism opportunities and values.
What does that look like for me if I'm a private business or someone with an idea and I want to throw out something to the county?
Well, look out for a RFP process, and we're going to make it as easy and simple as possible. And we can help really any bidder to quantify and frame their proposal in a way that'll meet state statute requirement and also fitting for the board's consideration. But one thing for sure, either you are interested in bringing a enterprise that brings community value, or you want to just purchase the building outright, they are all open options for the Board of County Commissioners. So you can either bring community value as a public benefit, or you can say, I want to make some capital investment, and that is definitely economical value for our residents.
I'm sure that when it comes to a decision that's made on that building, you want to make the right one. You want the right folks in there. But is there an urgency as far as a timeline? Like we want to get something in there somewhat quick?
Absolutely. Yeah, the timeline, the time frame is absolutely one of the considerations. Like I said, the maintenance and upkeeping cost is on the burden of our residents, and we want to minimize that as quickly as possible.
And when you said it could reach a million, is that like a million a year?
Yes.
Goodness gracious. So I'm
Mhm.
sure it behooves someone to get in there.
Yes. Yeah, the building itself, and I welcome you to come take a tour if you're interested. The design of the building is not most optimal for regular use because the large high ceiling, large space, and the airflow, and then the age of the chillers that we have in there, it makes it to be somewhat energy inefficient.
See. I think you answered all my questions. Is there anything you feel like you haven't had a chance to say on that?
No, I'm glad for this opportunity, but if you think of anything else you wanted to have an answer, like I said, at this point, the 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 opportunity is very wide, and we're still sort of conceiving what will be the next step after we close the RFP. Once we have all the bidders in, our five elected officials will have to come together, decide what are the ranking criteria they want to place, and using what matrix to decide who is better than the others, using the principal scale of public benefit. So I'm excited for that process to unfold, and I'm sure that we'll talk more as if unfolding.